Welcome back, everybody, to the OPT Network. Our guest this morning has garnered up the courage to turn her family and their friends' mess into an incredibly powerful message. The mess of losing a baby, a toddler at 3 years old, when he wasn't even swimming. Nicole Hughes is our guest this morning, and she's walking us through the harrowing day of losing their son, Levi. And so everybody's ready, about to go crab hunting, and you're just walking from one side of the property, the duplex, if you will, to the other. And then there's obviously a poolside view just to kind of give people a vision. And you just glance over.
Just glanced over. I mean, I didn't even know he was missing. And this was a boy, like I said, who was always Velcro to me. So had he been missing for any substantial amount of time, I would have known. I mean, I could never even slip away to, put something in the car or throw laundry in the dryer. But he, and I glanced over and, and I so often I've thought, is this worse? Is this better? Would this have been, but that bright yellow shirt I had just put on him, was the very first thing I saw. It wasn't even like,
Did it register? Did it register that bright yellow shirt is Levi?
My very first thought was confusion. And I know that sounds so crazy. Like, how could I not have immediately panicked? And I think I did immediately panic, but the very nanosecond first was just, but I literally thought to myself, but we weren't swimming. He's wearing khaki shorts. And it sounds so dumb, but that is what was my very first thought. Like, you can drown when you're wearing khaki shorts? And then I panicked and I turned around and I banged screaming on the window behind me and, went running down the stairs. And by the time I had jumped in and grabbed him and pulled him out.
You jumped in and grabbed him.
I did. And, when I grabbed his body, somebody else grabbed his other arm. And at the time, I didn't know who it was. I just knew that, like, in this moment that I'll have to relive for eternity, I wasn't alone. I mean, it was simultaneous. And I found out later that our first friend, who had run out the door first, had looked over the balcony, seen him, and had actually jumped off the second floor balcony into the water and reached him at the same time. I know. And nobody would even tell me who it was. I kept saying, like, who was in the water with me? Who was in the water? And, the symbolism of this moment and not being alone and not really knowing who it was is just, there are so many examples of beauty in the midst of this tragedy. And that was really, I'm so grateful for that small mercy. But our friends were all there, the 6 physicians, and they were there immediately on him. I mean, and they fully intubated him, started CPR. They gave him epinephrine. I mean, by the time the ambulance
Do you have time to think as a mother when you realize that this is Levi and you have all of these doctors and your husband who's a doctor and all these people that they are taking every measure to bring him back at that moment, even before 911 arrives? What is your prayer? What is your thought? Where are you?
I was angry. Even then I knew I just needed 1 minute. I kept like, oh, I just need 1 minute, please. I just need 1 minute. I mean, I didn't, I wish I could sit here and say I was hopeful, but I wasn't. I mean, I think that, I've never seen a dead body ever. And I think that just seeing him there, it just immediately, I knew we weren't going to get him back. And, as they worked on him and he wasn't coughing like in the movies, like you think drowning is, as I watched my husband perform CPR on him, I think that there is comfort in the later time of me knowing that he had the best possible
chance.
And so I never have to worry, what if. But I do think that I don't know. I just knew that we had lost him.
You just knew.
They did regain a pulse. He was airlifted to the hospital, but he never regained consciousness. I mean, we lost him just hours later.
What happens after you realize that Levi's gone?
I mean, of course, this is part of grieving. I don't even know if we have really. It's been 10 months of processing it then trying to come to that definite realization, and I don't even know if I'm really there. It's like it's new all over again every time, like it's still my story. It's startling almost, like this is still my son. This is still my story. But that night, I mean, we had to leave the beach. We had to drive back from the beach without him. And
That night, y'all,
it the
that
next
night,
morning,
the
we
next
left the
morning.
next morning. Yeah, I mean, really early the next morning, and we had to drive back without him. And within the span of 1 week, we had packed, driven to the beach, drove home without him, and held his funeral.
What do you and Levi, your husband, what do y'all say to each other? What do you say anything?
My husband we've been married for we've been together for 15 years, and we're together for 17. And I think that it's been so, we grieve very, very differently. But our understanding of each other and our support of each other throughout just like other like things that we thought were issues in our marriage, has been so important. My husband, the first thing he said to me when we got to the hospital, we had to get there separately because they airlifted him and our daughters were still there. I mean, and so it was just, we arrived like a little bit apart from each other. And he said, we are still a family. And I know, and he has really, I have to give him so much credit for just saying, we are going to survive this, because if not surviving doesn't bring Levi back either.
Right.
We do have 2 other girls, and we were so determined from the beginning. And I think that is what's really fueled us a lot since June, is just being so determined that they don't lose their childhoods too, and that they don't lose their parents. Like, this had the potential to kill all 5 of us, essentially.
Yes.
I mean, whether literally or through just stealing our life, a little bit over each day. And just this decision to choose to live purposefully despite the pain. It is a choice.
Do you think that y'all made that decision that night when he said, we are still a family?
We did. I do. I know. It set the tone for everything. I mean, I could have walked in that hospital room and he could have said, why weren't you watching him? Or I could have said, I thought you had him, or whatever it was, and I think for the comfort that we were both in the room, we saw just how quickly it happened. We know we weren't being neglectful. We weren't on our phones. We weren't drinking. We were just sitting there, and like I said, turned to close a bag of Cheetos. Levi was on the couch. And so that there is definitely a mercy in that, and us having been there together and seen exactly how it happened. But those were our first words to each other. And, and I have no doubt that it set the tone for exactly how we would proceed.
And so does it help you? I have a sense of talking to you, and maybe our listeners and viewers do as well, that it does give you strength to talk about Levi and to talk about his little personality and to talk about him. Does it help you?
I do. I mean, I do love, of course, he's one of my kids. He's my kid. Just like I give time for, I'm the Girl Scout leader for my girls and planning their birthday parties. I can't do that for him anymore. And so there is something healing about being able to put some energy toward him still. But, I will say though, when I share the story, like when this is over and I've shared it there is this, it feels almost like, I don't know, like I just gave bone marrow or something though too, because to put this out there, to really take like this part of my heart that is so real of him and of how he died, and really take it and put it out there, is very mentally, it's hard, honestly, but I do feel like there is strength. I think every time someone like you, or anytime anybody says, they really hear the message and they really think, I see how this could have been anybody. I mean, this was not, like I said, I cannot emphasize enough. We weren't even my phone wasn't even on that side of the house. I mean, so it wasn't like we were scrolling through Facebook, drinking and not parenting. I mean, it happened so quickly. And for me, when people hear that message and a little bit of that stigma gets broken, where maybe they can take it seriously. Sorry, my phone got, where maybe they can take it seriously. It just is, that gives me strength.
Absolutely. Let me get a break here, but when we come back, I want to talk about WaterGuard Tag and what you have put in place that hopefully another mother and other parents won't have to share a story like yours. Stay on point. We're back after this.